Good morning. This is Greg Pass with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is August the 10th, 2022, and I am in Woodbridge, Virginia. I have the pleasure to sit down with John Schick. John, tell us where you're coming from today. Where are you?
Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Outstanding. And tell us your full name and where you were born.
John Michael Schick. I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
And do you have any veterans in your family?
Yes, my son is an Army veteran. Did 2 overseas deployment. He was a medic with infantry unit. He did in Afghanistan, and he did Kosovo when they were trying to get their first elections off.
What about before you? Any veterans in?
Okay. Yeah. I had an uncle that spent 30 years with the Navy. He went as an enlisted guy and came out as a lieutenant commander or as a commander. He was in a couple of wars. He had 3 different ships shot out from underneath him. Uh, yeah. Other than that, no. That's it.
So, what motivated you to join the service, and what branch did you select,
Well,
or did you select?
actually, at my time, they were draft time, and I had a friend of mine that was in the Navy that I went to school with, and he says, "Geez, John, before you get drafted, you ought to think about joining the Navy." So, as it turned out, best laid plans. It turned out all right, but I wasn't your normal seagoing sailor.
And what year and how old were you when you enlisted?
I was 18, just graduated from high school, and that was 1966.
So when you
Excuse me, I got a question. My
yeah,
screen, you're blocked out of it. It says this meeting is being recorded by host or participant, and it says got it or leave meeting. Now, should I be doing something here?
just
Or
just if you could select got it, or is there a way to select got it?
I think so. Okay. All right. It went away. We got it.
So in 1966, when you enlist, do you have any say at all in your military occupational specialty, or they just say, hey, this is where you're going and this is what's happening?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. I actually, when I joined, went to boot camp up at Great Lakes in the middle of the winter. Lovely. Um, and then I came home, came back to Cedar Rapids for about 8 months before I went on active duty. And went on active duty, and I was going to have at least a 2 year uh, active obligation, and they sent me to Japan for my 2 years because that was a tour of duty over there. So no, I didn't get a choice in what job skills I was going to do. Um, Basically because, well, they didn't have to. It's like, okay, hey, you want to join the Navy? Join the Navy. Get away from the draft. But no, I didn't have a choice. I just wound up where I wound up, and it was fine. I worked out to be first of all, um, a Navy engineman was my rate. Took care of gas and diesel, mechanic, and I could either do that or only a couple other rates that were available to me where I was stationed. That doesn't make any sense at all. Didn't make a lot of sense to me either.
So at what point in time did you find out that you were going to be involved with operations in Vietnam?
Well, I got on a plane at Travis Air Force Base, California, and they flew me to Japan, and um, in the slept in a big barracks overnight in the transit barracks. The next morning, I was at Yokosuka, Japan. The next morning, they sent a Jeep over there, picked me up, drove me over to what was to be my general headquarters, shops, things for my unit, my Beachmaster unit. I walked in and dropped my sea bag and handed them my orders and said, "Well, here I am. Who are you guys and what do you do?" And one of the guys that was at the office, Beachmaster Wise, said, "Listen, come with me. I'll get you start start checking you in. Um, hey, sailors belong on ships and ships belong at sea." That was always my understanding. And he says, "Come here, I'll check you in. Come with me." We walked down a hallway and through a big iron gate and around the corner, and he throws an M16 at me, and he says, "This is yours." And I said, "What?" And me being kind of a wiseacre, I said, "Well, the next thing you're going to tell me is I'm going to Vietnam." And they said, "Yeah, you'll get a whole big stack of green utilities in the next few days, and you'll probably go with the next detachment out, which will be leaving for Vietnam in about 3 weeks." And I said, "Oh no, this didn't work, dodging the draft and going anyway." But uh, my unit had responsibilities down there, and it turned out fine. But no, I had no idea that's where I was going. But
So keeping in mind that people watching this video might not understand what was going on in Vietnam at that time, give us just a general overview of, as you understood it, what America's involvement was in the conflict at that time when you were about to deploy.
well, I guess I really didn't consider an awful lot of that, in a situation of being kind of apolitical. But we were there to win hearts and minds and protect the little guys from the big guys. It was early enough in it that we were still talking domino theory kind of a situation. And if we don't stop the red menace here, where are we going to stop it? Some people in Vietnam had reached out to us, and we were going to help. And that's pretty much, my idea of what we were doing there, and what my overall huge mission was going to be.
Gotcha. So, were you married at this time, or were you still
No,
single?
no, oh, still single.
So how did you get over there?
You mean literally? How did I get over there?
Yeah, literally. How did you move into theater? Were you on a ship at this
I
point?
flew. We flew into Japan, and my unit would spend. We rotated. The name of my unit was Beachmaster Unit One, the Western Pacific Detachment. We were out of Yokosuka, Japan. There was a total of about 140 or 150 personnel, period, in Beachmaster unit. Now, half of these people would be in Vietnam and half would be in Japan, in Yokosuka, Japan, in garrison, we'll say, over there to the army types. We every 3 months we'd rotate back and forth between Vietnam and Japan. So how did I literally, how did we get there? We flew down to Vietnam and got aboard a ship somewhere, and we're standing by for any amphibious situations that they wanted. We were part of the Naval Beach Group, um, and the amphibious ready groups that were there to support Marine and Army personnel in any kind of land insertion. Um, but I guess I'm not exactly sure whether
Yeah,
that
well, so
answered anything.
that leads into my next question. So, so you flew into Vietnam. What were your
Right?
first thoughts when you got into country? What did you observe? What was the weather conditions like?
Oh, that was interesting. My very first deployment down south Vietnam. Uh, my first deployment was about 10 days after Tet in 1968. And we flew into Da Nang, got aboard a big, well, I call them cattle car buses, semis. They took us to a ferry landing. Um, we're supposed to pick up a small boat and go out to the big ship. And they had it was a covered area where people waited for the ferries to take them across the river in Da Nang. And there was a big hole about the size of, maybe 2 bushel baskets right outside this covered area where people waited. And there's all these little motorcycles and stuff going by, and there was this big hole. And I asked one of the permanent guards there, not one of my guys. I said, "Geez, what's that big hole from?" And he says, "That was from a satchel charge." And I says, "Oh, who? What?" Well, yeah. He says they tried to blow this thing up into the river during Tet. And I said, "Well, they're not going to do it again." That was my first thing. I said, holy H here, buddy. No, 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 wait a minute. This is not good. Not good. How did they get that satchel charger? Well, they got on those little motorcycles and they ran by, and they usually had a driver and a passenger on there, and the passenger threw it over here. I guess. I don't know. He told me, and it's not the place for an Iowa rural guy, but there it was. I was stuck, and it turned out all right. But that was my first experience, and it was warm. It was February, uh, not sweltering hot, but uh, well, nothing like they have on the East Coast. Not 100 degrees, but it was in the 80s, 90s lots of times. So
So, where did they take you when you first got there? Did you get immediately onto a ship, or were you near the
yeah,
coast? Or
yeah, yeah. Uh, we were born in amphibious ships. My unit had vehicles that were amphibious vehicles, small. They weren't small boats because they were like 35 feet long and 11 and a half feet wide. Had great big rubber tires on it that you could drive them on the land or sail them in the seas. Um, they do 30 mile an hour on land and 10 or 12 knots at sea. Um, they were called larks, or lighter amphibious regular cargo. We carry 5 tons of cargo on there. Um, yeah, we were part of assault forces, I guess you would call us. Um, we were uh, they had ships that were amphibious ships, LSDs, that we used the road landing ship dock. They had the capabilities of semi-submerging. They had well decks in them. They would the they would drop the rear of the ship. The stern gate would drop. They would ballast the ship down so that there was water in this. Yeah, how do I want to say it? It's kind of hard to, unless you've seen one of them to understand. Wait a minute, they're going to half sink this ship, but they would fill this wall deck with water, and my amphibious larks or some regular landing craft would float in there, and then they would suck the water out of the well deck, raise the ship back up, and then we'd be on solid ground and aboard the ship. Um, so those were our larks. We rode the LSDs if we needed to. We did an awful lot of going back and forth from the ship to Da Nang itself to pick up supplies and things for the ship, fresh milk, vegetables. We ate good on LSD. Uh, or if we had a landing or an insertion, we were generally with the first people to go ashore. Um, one of the things that we would do would be to haul the frogmen. Um, they were the precursors to seals. If we were going to have a beach landing, they would go in with us usually and take what they call a ob, surf observation. Are there any obstructions here that are going to hinder the progress of landing craft? Um, I mean, nothing as dramatic as Omaha Beach, but the same kind of situation. Let's go scout this out before we, get ourselves in trouble here. And actually, my unit, my Beachmaster unit, they had their start. We were in the first guys. Um, First guys that went ashore in Omaha. We started in World War II, and we're still a continuing unit. So we had some. Yeah, I met one of the guys that actually went ashore at Omaha Beach. He died a couple of years ago now, but yeah. Anyway, we were just there to support amphibious landing. Our Beachmaster unit where we did salvage work, any small craft that got in trouble, um, salvage and communications from ship to shore. I know
Can you
it's hard for me to describe what we actually did unless you
that's it.
could see it. Like I said, didn't make any sense to me either.
So can you describe LSD? How big is an LSD and like what are its capabilities?
LSD was, oh geez, boy, I don't know. I never asked. I never thought about it. They're probably um, well, they're smaller than an aircraft carrier. Um, they're probably 400 feet long, 500 feet long, and they were kind of the back of the ship was kind of U-shaped. I don't know whether you can see. Can you see? They were kind of U-shaped like this, and they had a stern gate here that would fold down, and this part in here would submerge. That's what I was talking about. So, and then landing craft that would go in here. Their capabilities were the landing craft that you see going ashore and the front ramp, they hit the beach and the ramp falls down. Those are called landing craft, Mike boats. And we could put one, two, three, four, five, uh, 6 or 8 Mike boats, landing craft inside this U-shaped that was full of water. And after they got in there, then they would pump the water out and they'd be high and dry. So they were probably, let's see, 20, 40, 60, they were probably 80 feet wide anyway in this well deck and 500 long.
So,
Um,
so were you staying overnight on this ship, or were you just
oh yeah, we had we rode the ship as long as the ship was on the line, and we were like I said, every 3 months we'd rotate, and whatever LSD was on the line was in Vietnam. Um, we would stay on that, or if they rotated that ship out, the beach masters would go ride another ship. Um, yeah, so
so
uh,
what's life like aboard a ship like that? Where are you sleeping
boring.
at? Where are you eating at? Um,
Yeah, we just stayed. We had our own. Those LSDs were also they could carry, uh, probably 400 Marines or Army, generally Marines, troop spaces. Um, this ship that I was talking about, they had lots of berthing, extra berthing for embarked Marines, Army. Uh, if they said, hey, we're going to go over here to this beach and go ashore, you know, we would take the Marines were called the battalion landing teams. We would take them with us, offload them. They would go do their thing, and we'd come pick them up, when they were done. But no, we stayed aboard ship all the time, just waiting for them, waiting for something to do, basically, in operational situation.
did you guys hot bunk, or did you guys have to
No,
share racks, or
no, not bunk. There were enough room for us. Um, uh, didn't have a lot of room, but no, they were actually set up. Like I said, they were designed to be troop carriers, not a lot of troop carriers like you'd have aboard all different ships that were troop carriers, but they could take easily. LSDs could easily take 400, better than that. Their galleys, the mess decks were bigger. Everything was bigger. Um, because they may be carrying troops. Um, so you had to have fresh water. You had to have eating facilities. So everything was bigger than what the regular sailors that were stationed aboard that ship permanently, uh, a lot more than they ever needed. Just because they were troop carriers.
so describe what your typical day would be look like aboard the ship. What exactly is it that you're doing and the guys that you're working with are doing?
Oh no, I'm supposed to tell you all my secrets. We worked hard all the time. No, if we had no operations going, our typical day in the life of a beach master on deployment, on ops, Get up in the morning. You would go to the galley. You would eat breakfast. You would leave the mess decks. You would go out and all get in one big bunch, and your officer would say, "Well, we don't think we're going to do anything today. You know, fall out." Okay. Well, let's see. Are they done with breakfast in there in the cruise lounge? Yeah. Okay, get out the cards. And you sit there and you play cards, you'd play cribbage, you'd play hearts, you'd play whatever, and you basically would do nothing. You didn't have anything. You had to be ready to go if they said, "Oh, wait a minute, we got to go." So you couldn't really be incorporated in the ship's company. You basically sat on your hands till somebody said, "We're going to go do something. We need you to go ashore. Um, we need you to go scout something." Uh, but basically, then it'd be lunchtime, and then you'd go eat lunch, and then you'd play some more cards. Uh, and they didn't have these electronics things, so you really couldn't just, well, okay, sit down, open my laptop, put something in there to watch. Then it'd be supper time. And then after supper they would have a movie, so you'd watch the movie, and then you'd play some more cards. Then it was bedtime, and then the next morning you'd get up and you'd go eat breakfast again. It was pretty monotonous if you weren't operational. But if you
So,
weren't operational, that was good.
so
Nobody
the times that you
yeah.
were operational, what were your roles when you were operational? What
Okay.
exactly is it your team is
We
doing?
we were the duties of beach masters. We were to do beach salvage, one of these landing craft, whatever, it get, surf out here, it would get turned sideways into the surf, get stuck on the beach. We had to take larks or a large bulldozer and push these things off the beach, or take our lark out into the surf, put a tow rope from the boat that was in distress to our lark, pull them straight, pull them out of the surf. Or if they had mechanical difficulties, we were responsible to do salvage. And um, that was basically it. Ship to shore communications. We kind of stopped doing that, but we used to lay underwater wire sometimes if you were going to have a large operation. Um, but we did lifeguard duty. Um, if occasionally a boat would well, we've had them capsize. Um, but it's just stand by in the surf. Our responsibility was beach traffic control. If you had five of those little landing craft out there and two of them had tanks on them and two of them had people on them, you know, you signaled your beach commander would say, "Hey, we need one of those tanks in here." So then you call the signal flag, whatever you call the one boat that had a tank in it, you would say, "Hey, you come in here, offload that tank," or "You come in here, we need those bodies here." You know, come in, offload your. So we were in charge of beach traffic control and salvage operations.
And how far offshore are you when you're doing all this?
Well, we had our area responsibility was from where the surf started, the surf zone, up to high water beach, which it's just kind of self-explanatory. But how far out would we? Wherever, but it was, generally just wherever the surf. If they were beyond the surf, then they were safe. They weren't going to these small craft were not going to be getting stuck. They weren't going to be. I mean, they may not be in totally out of danger, because the closest land's always straight down. So, so, but yeah, we were from wherever the water stopped to where the surf started.
So you're pretty close. I mean, I'm just
Oh
trying to
yeah,
get a
yeah,
visual here. You can see lands pretty in
we're right
detail.
there.
Okay.
We're right there. Yeah,
And
yeah.
and how far is your area of operation? Are you moving great distances to different beaches, or are you pretty stationary in one area?
Well, it depends. I mean, there were no in our time over there. There were no big amphibious landings. It didn't look like that. It looked like, hey, wait a minute, we gotta roll these guys out, take we'll just say, and there was nothing typical. Well, and it was generally Marines, um, but Army did at times too, just depending on which one of those guys were tasked with it. But they'd say, "Hey, listen, we're going to go in and sweep an area out here, um, sweep for the bad guys, um, and we need some heavier equipment rather than what they could put ashore or what they could bring in with a helicopter." Because at this time they were really getting big into that area of air ops, rather than amphibious things. But if you had a big tank, or you had a big howitzer, if you had something big and you brought it across a beach, then that's where we was. But we didn't. Uh, uh, they used this in that respect, but we didn't have huge landings. It just didn't. The Vietnam War at that time was not geared to big landings of anything. We would take these people, we would put them ashore, and we had several times where you'd put them ashore, and a few days later you'd go pick them up again because the Marine Corps was done with their operation. Okay, bring our tanks, bring all our stuff back, take it back out and store it in the ship till we're ready to do something else again. Um, but if they needed and across the beach with heavy, you know, things that were heavy artillery, heavy tanks, heavy whatever, they had to come across the beach.
And you mentioned, so you're doing 3-month tours. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, yep, yeah. We would rotate back and forth, so there'd be out of this 140 to 50 guys, half of us would be in Vietnam at one time, the other half would be in Japan, and every 3 months we would rotate back and approximately 3 months, depending on the operations. We'd rotate back and forth. We'd relieve each other, but that was it. We were the only people, um, well, west of Coronado, California, that did our job. So we were pretty small bunch. Um, uh, but yeah, we wouldn't. I spent a total of well over 13 months total in country down there. Um, but we would not leave our people down there that length of time. We'd rotate us in and out. So
I didn't catch it earlier. Did your ship have a name? The LSD, did it have a name or?
whichever ones I wrote a lot of different ones. They had, because they would do the same thing. Those ships would leave. We'll say they would leave San Diego, an amphibious ready group where they would have an LSD, an LST, an LPH, where they would have a group of ships. They would go to Vietnam. They would stay online. It was called a Westpac cruise, Western Pacific cruise, and they would their cruises would last anywhere from 6 months to 8 months, and then they turn around and they come back to the United States. Um, so whichever of these ships were online, were on Yankee Station, we rode. And if they came back to the States, we got off and got on their replacement. So whatever ship was there that could accommodate us, that's the one we were on. And it changed. So we were on, geez, I don't know, in my time down there, I probably rode 6 or 8 different ships. Mostly all the same type. We were mostly on LSDs, as I said, but whichever ones were over there, that's who we rode.
And John, I don't think we captured this yet. What was the name of your unit that you were with at this time?
Okay. Beachmaster Unit 1. And then it was W, or Western Pacific Detachment.
Is that considered part of the Seabees?
No, we actually worked with it. We always took a CB with us when we went down south, and we took a big bulldozer when we went down south. But we always took like 2 CBs to service and run that big bulldozer. So we worked with them, but we were not really, on a day-to-day basis. We're not part of them at that time.
So let's talk a little bit about your family. How are you keeping in contact during your 3 month stints? How would you keep in contact with family at that time?
Just letters. We didn't. They had a system when we got back to Japan. Uh, Making a telephone call was from Japan to the States was really kind of difficult. you you went over to this one building on base in Yokosuka, Japan, and it was a telephone building, and you went in there and you took a number and you sat and you waited till your number came up, and then you could go in and call whoever you wanted to call. But there was no cell phone, there was no this. Um, so communications were like I said, were 90% just letters. In fact, that's where I found my draft notice.
How-
I was in Vietnam, and my mother sent me this letter. Just, oh Johnny, oh no, you got something from them. Oh, I think it looks important, and so I wrote her back. And that took another 10 days, and I said, what is it? And she says, well, I'll send it to you, and here it is. Because I was registered for the draft. Everyone had to when they were 18. I was registered, but I said, you guys got to be crapping me. You got to be messing with me, brother. I'm over here ducking my ass off, and you're saying me, we're going to draft you if you don't show up.
Now
Hey,
you're
come get
probably
me.
thinking, does the clock start now and I got to
Yeah.
start over again?
Yeah, come get me, please. Maybe I can go someplace besides here if you draft me.
That's funny.
No, yeah, that happened. It was a crazy time administratively for those people too. And oh yeah, we're gonna make you 1A, or whatever it was. But
Did you get to,
consequently, I didn't do anything with that letter. I
did,
ignored it and
no
said,
doubt.
"Come
Did
get
you
me."
get
Yeah.
to did you get to spend much time at all actually on land?
Um. Well, in Japan we were
I'm talking about in country in
in
Vietnam.
country. No, no, we didn't spend. The only time when we would go into Da Nang, and our Larks had the capabilities, right, of amphibious. They were an amphibious craft. You'd drive them, so we could leave the ship at anchor out in the harbor in Da Nang, uh, operationally, and every week or 10 days they would send the beach masters and their Lark into Da Nang to pick up spare parts for the ship, uh, fresh fruit, milk, things like I said, ate good there, um, because we had those capabilities. So we would go into Da Nang, pull up on the land, go over to the Navy supply depots, pick up whatever we needed, or drop off our shopping list, really. And then we'd go back to, well, Camp Tenshaw. I saw quite a bit of Camp Tenshaw over there. It was the Navy base, the Navy part of facilities in Da Nang. And they had an enlisted men's club, and they were open from 6 in the morning till 4 in the morning because they had guys working around the clock, and they sold cold beer and they had entertainment. So most of my time, as a good sailor that I was, yeah, I saw the inside of the enlisted men's club over there more than I saw anything else in Vietnam. But no, we didn't. Occasionally, we'd set up, uh, stay on the beach. We'll say, set up an area on the beach, for a few days at a time. But we were never in country for any long period of time.
So I am a little curious about Japan. What's it like? What's Japan like 20 years removed from the war? So the war, the war, World War II ended about 20 years before you were over there.
Yeah.
What was your were you engaged at all with the citizens there? Did you have
Oh
chance?
yeah. Oh
So
yeah. I
how
I
did that
got
play out?
to I got to speak, some conversational Japanese, but it's like around any military base at that time. They catered to wine, whiskey, and the occasional cute girl. So you know, that's what Yokosuka, Japan was for the first half a dozen blocks away from the main gate. And after that, actually, I spent considerable time, myself and a couple of my friends, just if we had the weekend off, just go to the train station, and trains were the way to travel all over Japan. Um, just get on a train, say, hey, I got 500 yen ticket, you know, $2 ticket, you know, take me as far as the train will let me go. So the conductor, when you got your 500 yen worth, he'd say, nah, 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 get out, you know, and we'd see, like I said, I could speak a little conversational Japanese, and we'd go and we'd eat on the economy. We'd drink on the economy. We'd wander around and look at things. And when we got done, we'd get back on the train and come back home. So I did go see some things, Japan, but we didn't have an awful lot of free time to vacation a lot. But how it had changed, they were, boy, I don't know. I don't know what it looked like if the military base wasn't there. I mean, there were lots of girls and bars and things that that's all the farther that a lot of GIs went. I mean, I made it a point to go farther than that on the train.
When you would go further on a train, did you find that the citizens were pretty receptive to Americans? Were they friendly or
Well, kind of depends how old they were. I found a couple of different Japanese nationals um, that, well, some that remembered the end of World War II. And that was a bitter thing for a lot of them. But something that seemed kind of a few Japanese citizens that I talked to on more of a personal basis. That's a long story. One of them was a dentist, so he was an educated person and spoke pretty good English. Um, he said that there was a lot of feelings about the Japanese. If the Japanese would have had the bomb, they would have used it. So, hey, you had the bomb, you used it. We didn't like it, but it was war and that was it. What a lot of them couldn't understand is after the war was over with, that we had war trials. They said, hey, you used the bomb. That was okay. But how come you're going to try all these people for being at war? So a lot of them had a little problem about that. But no, they, you know, kind of money ruled. They tolerated us because we put a lot of money into the economy. It's like uh, my actual base in Yokosuka, Japan, which that was the largest naval facility west of California. A lot of ships, big dry dock facilities, all this, but they had to employ, like, we couldn't do an awful lot of maintenance when we were in Japan on some of our equipment. We had to let the Japanese do it because we had to employ. I often heard that we had to employ 10,000 Japanese nationals on the base. You were in your barracks and light bulb went out. You called Public Works, and they sent two little guys on their bicycles. Here they come. They'd come over with their little short little ladder, and they'd put the little ladder up with a light bulb. Change the light bulb. I said, "You got to be kidding me!" No, that was part of the agreement. They had to do those things. We had to supply employment for them.
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of crazy, but yeah.
And you wonder why your taxes were so high.
Well, yeah, well, no, wait a minute. Oh, that was one of the benefits. When we were over there, we didn't have to pay taxes.
Good point. Good point.
So, yeah, but the toilet seat, yeah, you're talking about the $40 that, yeah, that was probably part of it. I don't know.
So
That's, go ahead.
when you think about your time specifically in Vietnam, what are there any memories that stick out in your minds, whether it be something just memorable, funny, frightening, anything pop in your mind?
Uh, well, the camaraderie with my people. I didn't when I was there, we didn't lose anybody. So it's not like I had memories of um of somebody losing their life over there. Out of my unit. Basically, it was just the camaraderie of people that I was with. Um, because we didn't have an awful lot of interaction with the Vietnamese people, um, just because that wasn't what we did. You know, we were at sea and we were ashore and sea and shore. It wasn't like we were, in the Army or Marines or something where we had a permanent base, a camp someplace where we would interact with people. My son and I were talking about interpreters the other day because we're always trying to bring interpreters in from Afghanistan, and David said, well, he kind of lost contact with his Terps from Afghanistan, but sure, he remembers them. He remembers them as people well, I guess. But no, I have no huge, other than the people that I was stationed with. Vietnamese, no, don't have a lot of memories. More of them from Japan, but not Vietnam.
If if you had a young man or a young woman approach you and they knew that you were a veteran, and they said, "Hey, I'm thinking about enlisting in the U.S. Navy or Marine Corps, whatever branch," what advice would you give them on how to have a successful career in the military?
Uh, Keep your mouth shut. uh, you know, I'll tell you a long time. When I came off active duty and I decided to stay in the reserves, I started getting a lot smarter. And as I progressed up the line and in management and pay grade and things, I learned an awful lot more about it. And when you're a brand new recruit, maybe nothing makes sense, but the longer you stick around, it does. But it's a kind of situation in the military, and I don't think it's because in talking to my son and a few other young vets, the military, if you can't make it in a normal situation, if you can't make it in the military, you're going to have a hard time making it as a civilian. You're going to meet the best people in the world, and you're going to meet the biggest assholes in the world, the best and the worst. Some people go to really to make the service great, and some people still to this day go in there to hide. And the people that hide, no, but it can be a good life. Um, and sure, yeah, go for it. At least, you know, give it a good shot. Um, you don't have to be like me, and stay close to 24 years, but give it a shot for a little while, before you get out. Um, yeah.
So we're obviously we're filming this right now, and you're going to receive a copy of the video in about a month or two, and you're also going to receive instructions on how you could submit your story, this video, to the Library of Congress or the Veterans History Project. So theoretically, your video will be documented and available for hundreds of years as long as the United States still has a government standing. If one of your great, 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 great grandkids or another descendant of yours stumbled upon this video a couple hundred years from now, what would you want them to know about your service to your country?
Well, I had a good time. Even with the war going on. Gosh, I don't know. Um, oh, I would tell them any story that I wanted to tell them, but they're going to have to make their own way. They're going to have to make up their own mind, their own. Sure, look at me, um, and since um, my son is involved in this, then if his information would be there, um, hey, you know, look at Uncle David, and look at the old man. Um, hey, give it a shot. You can have a good time in there. Hopefully it's not. Well, I don't know. Just make up your own mind. It's a good life. You can. It's a yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Oh,
spending some time with us today. I learned a great deal about Navy life. And
I'm sorry. This is really my career is really complicated. So this is kind of a complicated situation. Um, you know, it's not as easy, for you. Really? Well, aren't you on just a regular old sailor on a regular old ship? Well, kind of no. Wait a minute. We were, so I hope that this makes sense to someone, but
it does, and I appreciate it. So, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Experience, I thank you for your time today, and more importantly, thank you for your service.
well, thank you for doing this.